Make Ukraine nuclear again. France and the UK are loading nuclear weapons for Ukraine. Total panic and chaos in Russia. Putin no longer knows where to turn. Propagandists are choking on accusations and threats. But that won't save them. Shock! 10,000 troops are already heading to destroy the occupiers. Partners are supporting the front with unprecedented force. Meanwhile, Ukraine is armed like never before. New missiles will tear the Kremlin to pieces. The situation is extremely tense. What will happen next? Let's talk about it. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. Maria Farafonova here with the latest updates. Britain and France will give nuclear weapons to Ukraine. This is what Russian propagandists are shouting about. They are scared that a deadly bomb could be launched directly at them.
Britain and France are preparing to arm Ukraine with a nuclear bomb, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service reported. The British and French want to disguise the transfer of nuclear weapons to Kyiv as Ukraine's own development.
Russians, nearly choking on their own rhetoric, claim that Russia is so powerful that the Ukrainian armed forces have no chance of winning, and therefore Kyiv is turning to Britain and France for such assistance. It seems nuclear weapons are appearing in the occupiers' imagination far too often. After the latest strikes carried out by Ukrainian Flamingo systems, pro-war Z-bloggers appear to have completely lost touch with reality.
And the last question we were asked today from the front about the enemy's attack on Udmurtia: what if this thing had been nuclear capable? The British, for example, are prepared to do a great deal to continue the conflict.
The UK government responded to Russia's false statements. Putin's propagandist pets were caught red-handed.
This is an obvious attempt by Vladimir Putin to divert attention from his horrific actions in Ukraine. There is no truth in this whatsoever. You may have heard the Prime Minister's words this morning, in which he paid tribute to the incredible resilience of the Ukrainian people. We will continue our efforts to secure a just and lasting peace.
Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev later stated that if partners really were to transfer nuclear weapons to Ukraine, Russia could use nuclear weapons against the United Kingdom, Ukraine and France if necessary. As always, accusations and threats, a familiar tactic of the Russian Federation. Well, nuclear weapons have not been transferred to Ukraine. Yet. But relaxation would not be advisable for Russia. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom and France are ready to send contingents of up to 10,000 soldiers to Ukraine. This was stated by President Volodymyr Zelensky.
There are different types of brigades, and in our understanding, up to 5,000 troops constitute one brigade. When we signed our declaration with all participants of the Coalition of the Willing, we understood that these two countries are already ready to provide one brigade each.
He noted that there are signals from several other states that are also prepared to allocate contingents for deployment to Ukraine. The exact location of these units remains unknown, though Zelensky said he would prefer to see them closer to the front line.
So, conditionally speaking, Poland has not confirmed its presence, but if Poland, for example, proposed its presence in Lviv, we would not need that. That is not how we work. It would be better if Poland then had the opportunity to provide its logistics for aircraft and for air defense.
Earlier, former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson stated that the United Kingdom should immediately send troops to Ukraine.
I see no logical reason why we should not send peaceful ground troops there to demonstrate our support, our constitutional support for a free and independent Ukraine. This is a political question. It is about whether Ukraine is a free country or not. If it is a vassal state of Russia, which is what Putin wants, then obviously Putin decides who comes into his country. If not, then Ukrainians should decide.
Meanwhile, UK Defense Secretary John Healey stated that he would like to be the first defense minister to send British troops to Ukraine. He stressed that there is no greater responsibility for a defense minister than deciding on the use of armed forces, adding that a secure Europe requires a strong and sovereign Ukraine. A breakthrough in missile development. Ukrainian engineers have created a ballistic missile, meaning the armed forces of Ukraine would no longer need external authorization to use such weapons against targets inside Russia. The same applies to the Flamingo missile, which has reportedly demonstrated high effectiveness against targets deep behind enemy lines. British engineers have also joined the process. Details ahead.
The Ukrainian missile, which today is deeply feared and respected not only by our enemies, but thanks to its remarkable precision and pinpoint accuracy, along with its low production cost, is even generating a significant amount of concern among Kyiv's international partners. In February 2022, we asked our Western partners to close the airspace over Ukraine. But by February 2026, it is Europe that is asking Ukraine to share its unique experience on how to do this independently.
It's a very simple technology. There's nothing complicated needed here. There are plenty of books written about this, where everything is explained step by step. What's so difficult about it?
As it turns out, modern American and European air defense technologies have a huge drawback: their cost. Even though Western weaponry is technologically unmatched given the current realities of warfare, NATO would only be able to defend against enemy missiles and drones for a few days. The West simply doesn't have enough resources for more than that, since each missile costs tens or even hundreds of times more than the drones it is used to destroy.
Currently, intercepting an Iskander, it costs over $6 million.
And here, Ukraine comes to the West's aid with its unique Flamingo missile.
We want to bring that down to $1 million, $1.5 million, so that intercepting an Iskander would cost that much.
With the help of the FP9 missile?
With the help of the FP7 missile.
The Ukrainian Flamingo is already demonstrating unprecedented effectiveness and accuracy, striking strategic targets in Russia. Developed in record time, the missile has become yet another headache for Putin and his generals. Since the development is entirely domestic, the Ukrainian armed forces do not need permission to strike Flamingo wherever they want or need to. The only problem our developers have to put up with is scaling up production. So far, it has not been possible to produce a sufficient number of missiles per month for the Ukrainian armed forces.
This is strategic weaponry. Unfortunately, strategic weapons cannot be bought or launched today like hotcakes, in the same quantities as FPV drones, so that the effect is clearly seen by every single person, reaching into each and every household. But based on the missions that have been carried out so far, we can see that it fully met the ambitious objectives that we originally set for it.
For now, there are not enough domestic missiles to strike all targets on Russian territory, so our Western partners have to help with this as well. For example, the United Kingdom is developing a new deep strike ballistic missile for Ukraine.
We can categorically state that, first and foremost, we are talking about a missile that can be quickly scaled up and is a relatively affordable and accessible resource. Since the government of the United Kingdom is specifically emphasizing that this should be a cost-effective solution, that is, it should effectively address the complex requirements and demands of the times, as we see that the armed forces need a substantial and consistent volume of such means, and it simply cannot be too expensive for the budget.
As a result, within the framework of the Nightfall project, Britain announced a competition for the accelerated development of ballistic missiles intended for combat operations under conditions of high threat and strong electromagnetic interference. The modern British missile will be able to launch from various platforms, carry out a series of launches, and leave its position within a matter of minutes. The system will be equipped with a 200-kilogram high explosive warhead, feature high accuracy, and have a range of up to 500 kilometers.
500 kilometers. That completely covers the entire temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine. It also covers a significant portion of the European part of the Russian Federation, and at this depth, the enemy positions both its higher-level headquarters from brigade up to divisional, army, and group of forces levels. These are also quite serious logistical hubs. In other words, these are places where fuel and lubricants as well as ammunition depots are concentrated.
In combination with the Ukrainian Flamingo, the British missile could significantly diminish the Kremlin's and personally Putin's desire to continue their campaign. Instead of launching missile strikes on peaceful Ukrainian cities, the bunker dweller will be forced to endlessly defend against Ukrainian armed forces missiles.
The sheer number and the increasing intensity of the operations currently being carried out by our dedicated security forces using advanced strike drones, including those directed against key strategic targets, are effectively wearing down the enemy's air defense forces over time. Furthermore, the powerful combination of ballistic weapons and strike drones can already deliver highly targeted strikes against specific enemy assets that are critically important to their overall operations.
And it will only get worse from here, at least for the Kremlin. Ukrainian developers promise to reach the necessary supply volumes of ballistic weapons for the armed forces of Ukraine by the end of this year, while simultaneously creating more and more types of advanced weaponry.
In 1 year, it's ballistics. In 2 or 3 years, It's the creation of an anti-ballistic air defense shield over all of Europe.
This is for the entirety of the European continent.
Europe has launched joint production of drones and ballistic weapons with Ukraine. Strikes deep into Russia's rare areas demonstrate how effective the development of Ukraine's defense industry has become. New European assistance, expanded domestic manufacturing, and growing panic among Russian forces. We cover it all in the next report.
Putin wants the war to continue, which is why strikes on Russia are ongoing. Russia keeps burning, all because Ukraine knows how to respond to aggression. Moreover, Ukraine continues to develop the means with which it delivers retaliatory strikes. As it has become known, Ukraine, together with Germany, has developed a new drone from Quantum System. This is the RAD target drone, which was already demonstrated during the visit of the Ukrainian delegation to the first Ukrainian-German joint production facility.
A target drone is often used to test the capabilities of air defense systems, whether newly developed or to confirm the specifications of existing ones. They are used to conduct exercises and to train new personnel for air defense systems. Again, the newcomers who are taking their seats for the anti-aircraft self-propelled system, or even an anti-aircraft missile system, or an anti-aircraft missile and gun system, ZRPK, they must, for some reason, strike at something, for some reason at a moving target.
The tactical and technical specifications are still being kept secret, but it is known that the drone will be launched from a catapult, and it is equipped with a jet engine that can reach speeds of up to 450 kilometers per hour. And as experts say, it is most likely also capable of carrying a warhead, which already changes the purpose of the drone itself.
First and foremost, this is a target drone. But we have repeatedly seen examples with you where target drones were equipped, including with combat payloads. And they had the capability to be used directly as a strike element. Therefore, I do not rule out that the drone RAD is a drone for multifunctional use. Not only as a target, for example, for domestic production in European countries, specifically Germany and so on. But this versatile system can also be used to mount a highly destructive explosive warhead on it, and then deploy it for tactical military operations accordingly, for delivering strikes at medium distances. That is, this drone is precisely for striking the enemy's mid-rear zone or temporarily occupied territories or the territory of the Russian Federation. It could be 10 kilograms, 20, 30, 50, or even 100. Consequently, any drone target, as a result, will be handled accordingly. In the near future, it could potentially even become a powerful strike drone.
Ukraine continues to develop its technologies and military-industrial complex. And, as has already become known, as many as 10 factories for the production of Ukrainian drones will open in Europe this year. Therefore, we will increasingly see retaliatory strikes against Russia. But it's not just about drones. On January 11th, the British authorities announced their intention to create a powerful ballistic missile, Nighthawk, specifically for Ukraine. The statement from the British government indicates that the new ballistic missile can carry a 200-kilogram warhead and has a range of 500 kilometers. And these are only the initial figures. As stated by the UK Minister for the Armed Forces, London is determined to provide Ukrainians with more weapons.
A safe Europe needs a strong Ukraine. These new British long-range missiles will allow Ukraine to stay in the fight and will make Putin worry.
But the Nighthawk is not the only missile being prepared for delivery to Ukraine. 6 European countries are developing another new cruise missile. Germany, France, Britain, Italy, Poland, and Sweden signed an agreement to develop it. According to Western sources, this project is known as OWE 500+. The price for such a missile will be below market value. Moreover, the new systems are supposed to be intelligent enough to achieve Western objectives without manual control. Who exactly? Whether Ukraine or Russia has the advantage in drone missiles is still hard to say. But what is known is that the Kremlin clearly did not expect such resistance from the Ukrainians, even in the 4th year of the war.
Through our defensive actions, we are simply exhausting the Russian occupation forces at the tactical, operational, and operational tactical levels. Although as of today, even in principle, even since 1925, the Russian Federation has not demonstrated any success at the operational tactical level at all. Even its offensive actions, during the extensive summer military offensive campaign, it failed to provide any clear evidence that the Russian troops were effectively able to achieve their goals. To capture a range of areas across Ukrainian regions that would have allowed them to break through the Ukrainian defenses, cause a collapse of the defense, or achieve some other breakthroughs deep into our defensive lines. No, nothing of the sort. They advanced very slowly through forest belts, fields, and villages that were practically reduced to ashes. Nothing on a global scale. And in principle, Ukraine now holds a dominant position as a country occupying defensive positions.
The exhaustion of the Russians is happening not only at the front, but also in the rear. After all, as we have already seen, strikes on Russia's vulnerable points have not stopped. Ukraine is maximizing both the assistance from its partners and its own defense industry. The Flamingo is already destroying the largest ammunition depots in the Russian rear. Ukrainian Flamingos are also striking at training grounds, for example, Kapustin Yar, from which Russia launches Oreshnik. Here's how the Flamingo flies. Oil refineries, factories, and military units are burning. The Ukrainian Sapsan missile system with ballistic missiles has entered mass production and systematic deployment. And here is the range of the Sapsan. Moreover, according to some expert assessments, Sapsan has an advantage in speed over the American attackers. And it can easily strike Moscow. Some sources claim that Ukraine is already using these missiles, but the information about where and how remains classified. Let's not forget about the Storm Shadow either. And HIMARS, which, according to Russian television, are supposedly being destroyed in batches, but somehow not really. HIMARS still keep hitting the power plants. And the Russian panic is most visible on Russian TV. Because even there, they've started talking about how strong the Ukrainians are.
If Ukraine, just imagine for a moment, manages to hold on. After the conflict ends, the Kyiv regime remains in place. This army is preserved. Europe rearms this army, and Ukraine is admitted into the European Union. Believe me, in 5 years, it won't be Germany, France, Italy, Poland, or anyone else running the European Union. It will be Ukraine running things there. Moreover, it will do so fully aware that its Ukrainian army, if it wishes, can march across all of Europe. And no French, German, or any other army will be able to stop it.
The demilitarization that Putin so desperately wanted to achieve in Ukraine has failed spectacularly. Now, strikes on Russian territory have become more frequent and more powerful, because Ukraine knows how to respond to aggression.
Exactly 4 years ago, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. What has Putin managed to achieve in that time after sending 1,260,000 of his compatriots to death or injury? Let's take a look.
2 or 3 weeks and it was all supposed to be over. As a result, today is February 24th, 2026, exactly 4 years since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Kremlin occupation forces.
I have made the official decision to proceed with a special military operation immediately.
This war has become the bloodiest and most destructive in the history of Russia and Ukraine since the end of World War II. In 4 years, the Russian Federation has lost more people than in all the wars and conflicts throughout the existence of the aggressor country combined. And with each passing year, the number of Russians killed and maimed in Ukraine only increases, while the territories seized by the Kremlin are incomparably small compared to the losses in manpower. Despite the fact that in 2025 they managed to mobilize and conscript 406,000 people into military service, their total losses, including those killed and wounded, amounted to about 418,000 soldiers. The year 2025 became the first during the entire war when the losses of the Russian army exceeded the number of new recruits. Losses are increasing while the amount of captured territory is only decreasing. Throughout the entire past year, the Kremlin captured less than 1% of Ukraine's territory, and in just the incomplete month of February 2026, the Ukrainian armed forces have already reclaimed.
Things are not going so smoothly for the Russians. They are facing serious resistance from the armed forces of Ukraine and are even encountering situations where the Ukrainian armed forces, in turn, are launching offensive operations.
Since February 2022, Russia has managed to inflict serious damage on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. This winter has been the coldest and darkest for Ukrainians, but it did not break them. In turn, Ukraine also carried out massive retaliatory strikes on Russian energy facilities, from the border regions of Belgorod all the way to Smolensk. Many Russians also experienced firsthand exactly what these widespread blackouts are like.
Wait, oh no, are we being bombed? It really looks like we're being bombed right now.
I don't know.
Just last year, at least 25 out of 38 of Russia's largest energy facilities were damaged by Ukrainian drones. In addition, the cold winter revealed that Russia's public utilities are in terrible condition, with all the money going to the war instead of repairs.
There is a monstrous underinvestment in public utilities, and we have a monstrous underinvestment in all energy sectors. That is, from time to time, when accidents occur in some settlements, it suddenly turns out that there is, for example, a heating plant that hasn't been repaired since Soviet times or something else like that.
To repair the public utilities sector, about 10 trillion rubles need to be invested in Russian infrastructure. That is exactly how much the Kremlin spent on financing the war in Ukraine in 2025. Russians have also started to feel that they are the ones paying for the war in Ukraine, as prices in Russia have begun to skyrocket.
Well, friends, how are we starting the new year 2026? That's right, So, my husband went to the store. How much do you think all of this cost? 3,000, three grand.
Have you even seen this? Now, even in August, chocolate comes in these cases because the prices have just shot up to the sky, already 139 rubles. People are being forced to steal.
At the end of September last year, the Russian finance minister Silvanov explained the increase of a VAT from 20 to 22% as a measure to fight inflation. But after the new VAT was introduced, he stated directly, all Russians must pay for the war in Ukraine.
We need additional spending on defense and security. Today, this is the primary task of our country. And in order to provide the necessary resources, yes, we are also changing the value-added tax.
It will take at least 2 or 3 years to make up for those lost years when all resources were simply pulled out of the civilian sector. Once again, people don't buy tanks, people don't buy missiles, but that's exactly what's being produced. Naturally, prices are rising for things that are not being produced.
International sanctions and the ban on the sale of hydrocarbons, strikes on the oil refining industry, budget deficits, rising prices, colossal losses among the male population, as well as an increase in banditry from the so-called returning heroes of the special military operation. This is far from a complete list of problems that Russia has faced after attacking Ukraine. In response, starting from 2014, Russia occupied less than 20% of Ukraine's territory, becoming a global pariah.
That's all for now. Stay with us to be the first to know what's happening right now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon!